Do you find it cumbersome and frustrating trying to teach someone else in your organization how to do a particular computer-based task? Have you ever wished there was a way that you could train them without even needing to be there? Well, today I'd like to tell you about an amazing free software that will enable you to make high-quality video screen capture recordings from your computer. Hi there, I'm Mark from Valor XL. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'd like to tell you about the incredible OBS Studio. This is an absolutely free open-sourced software that's available for download on Windows, Mac, and Linux platforms. OBS stands for Open Broadcaster Software, and you can use this tool both for live streaming and for screen capture recording. Now today we'll be focusing on the recording aspect, and I'll walk you through the steps for downloading, installing, configuring, and using OBS. And please stick around until the end of this video, where I'll share another great free resource with you that can really help your small business or nonprofit to thrive. Now let's get right to it. All right, now the first thing I wanted to mention is that I've already downloaded and installed OBS Studio, and I'm actually using it to make this recording. So I won't be able to show you every single step of the installation, but I'll still walk through it with you and describe everything that you need to do. So first you'll want to click on the link in the description below this video to access the obsproject.com website. When you do, the OBS Studio page will launch, and you'll see you have the download options for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Now, even though I've already downloaded the software, I'm currently running on Windows 10, so I'll go ahead and click on Windows. As soon as you do this, a dialog box opens up, and as you can see, it's a very, very quick download. When it's completed, it will give us a prompt that says Open File. Now, because I've already installed the software, I won't open it, but basically opening it just launches an install. And from there, it will ask you if you want to install it. You click on Yes, and a few seconds later, you'll be done. It's very quick and easy. And once it's installed, you will see the OBS icon in your lower taskbar down here. You'll notice that mine has a red circle on it, and that's because we're currently recording in the software. So anytime you're in record mode, there will be a red circle right there. Now at this point, you can go ahead and launch OBS Studio. But because mine is already downloaded and installed and I'm recording in it, just know that yours won't look the same way that mine does when you open it. The first time that you launch OBS Studio, it will prompt you into an auto configuration wizard. If you're going to primarily use OBS for doing screen recording, just make sure that you select the option that says Optimize for Recording. So to launch it, go ahead and click on the icon, and this will open up. Now, there's a lot going on here, and don't let this throw you. I'll explain everything that we're looking at currently, but right now, the only program that I'm running is OBS Studio. And this is basically showing me a display capture of what I'm seeing on my monitor. And because I only have OBS open, OBS is showing me OBS, which is showing me OBS, and on into infinity. So that's why this looks the way that it does. And we'll talk a lot more about this in just a minute. You'll notice down here at the bottom, there are these different sections. We have scenes, sources, audio mixer, scene transitions, and controls. Now, each one of these sections is called a dock. And if you go to the top taskbar and click on Docs, you'll see that each one of them is listed here with a check mark. You can deselect them, and when you do, they'll disappear from your workspace. I can go back up here, click again, and it returns. Now, another really convenient feature, you can click, hold, and drag any of these wherever you'd like to place them on your workspace. The order that I have them in here is just something I stumbled across through trial and error. It's a good workflow for me, but feel free to experiment yourself. You may come up with a different configuration that works better for you. So we'll go through and take a look at what each one of these docks does. But the first thing we need to do before we move on to anything else is go over here under Controls, and I'd like to go into Settings and show you a few different parameters that you'll need to set up before you start recording. When we click on Settings, it opens up this dialog box. Now, because we're actively recording in OBS Studio right now, there are certain parameters that the software won't allow me to change, and you'll notice there are a few areas that might be grayed out, but I can still walk through and show you everything you need to look at. You'll see on the left, we have a taskbar with several different options. We'll disregard stream right now since we're only dealing with recording. So the main areas we need to look at are output, audio, and video. And then we'll come back a little bit later on and talk about hotkeys. But let's go into output first. Now, with recording, the main thing you need to look at is the recording path. And this is basically where you'll make the determination of where you want to save the video files that you're recording. So you would be able to click on Browse, and it would give you a drop-down option. Now you could save these to your desktop, to your video folder, to a cloud solution. I'm actually saving mine on an SSD that I have connected through a USB. So I've selected that file path, and this is a file name that I created especially for this purpose. Now if we come over here and click on Audio, this is the area where we'll do the configuration for the hardware that we're using to actually record and monitor the audio. And the only section you need to look at here is Global Audio Devices. Now right now I'm using a laptop. I have an external webcam attached, and I also have an external audio interface that I have a microphone and a pair of headphones plugged into. So here, desktop audio is where you can do the monitoring of the audio that you're recording. There are different options, but you'll see right now that I've selected the one for my audio interface. The mic auxiliary audio is the input for the signal that you're recording. I could have done a couple of different things here. I could have recorded through the built-in mic in my laptop. I could have used the one in my external webcam, but again, I've selected the one for my audio interface. And a really nice feature in OBS Studio is that it gives you multiple mic and auxiliary inputs. So if you wanted to do a recording with several different people talking, they could each have their own microphone. And the last thing we need to look at here is video. It's a little hard to see right now, but this is showing us the base or canvas resolution. We'll talk a little bit more about canvas later on. And also the output or scaled resolution. Now, what you're doing here is essentially establishing how you want the image to fit in the final version of your recording. I have mine set for 1920 by 1080. You could adjust it accordingly. It's indicating here that we have an aspect ratio of 16:9. And that's really all we need to set. For each of these, after you've made your changes, click Apply, and then click OK. In just a second, we'll go through and I'll explain what each one of these docks does. But I first of all wanted to talk a little bit more about this display up here. Now, if I take this, click on it, and drag it a little bit to the right, you'll see there's a black area that's being exposed here. If I pull it completely off, from your perspective, you'll probably only see black. Well, that black area is the canvas that we were looking at in the video settings. And think of the canvas as being your workspace. It's basically the area where you'll composite all the different elements that make up the videos that you're recording. When I dragged it off to the right, you might be able to see on the right-hand side, there are some zebra stripes that are there. That will occur anytime when your image is outside of the canvas. So that's just an easy way to make sure that things are properly centered. And now I'd like to talk about each one of the docks. And let's start over here with scenes. Now, the easiest way to think of scenes is to picture a live TV broadcast where there are multiple people talking, each one is on a separate camera, and during the broadcast, the director of photography will toggle back and forth from one camera to the next. They may cut to an on-screen graphic or a video clip, and that's basically the idea behind scenes. Now, you can tell right here, Scene 2 is highlighted. That is what we're currently looking at. And every scene will always be fed by one or more sources. So the sources are the individual elements that feed into the scene. Right now, the only one we have is display capture, which is again just showing what I'm seeing on my monitor. But I also have an external webcam hooked up. So let's go ahead and add that. I'll click down here on the plus sign, and this will show us all the possible options that we could select. Now, a webcam is a video capture device, so I'll make that selection. It will default to calling it that. We could change this to webcam if we wanted to. I'll go ahead and keep it as is, and we can click on OK. It will open the webcam, and there I am. So what we'll do is go ahead and say OK. Now, this can be a really handy feature for situations where you're doing an instructional video. Sometimes it's nice to have you down in the corner while you're talking. But if you'll look at what we're seeing here, you'll notice that I have a lot of unwanted stuff on the corners. That's not a very good background. And just grabbing in the corner and minimizing it doesn't really change anything. So what you can do on your keyboard is hold down on the Alt key, grab the sides, and you can actually drag them in like this. And it's a great way that you can just frame the shot a little bit better. Cut out any of the background that you don't want. That looks a lot better. Then I'll click on it. And at this point now I can resize it however I like. I can move it down here and put it in the corner if I want. It's just a very handy thing that you can have for a training video. So now that we've done that, I'll go ahead and right click on it. I'm going to say remove, and we'll go ahead and remove it. Now what we just looked at for the display capture and the video capture was Scene 2, but you'll notice we also have Scene here. Now, when I click on Scene, from your perspective, you're probably seeing nothing but a completely black screen. And that's because I didn't select any kind of a source to feed into Scene. And I did that intentionally because I want to use this as something that I can fade in and out of at the beginning and the end of a video. I'll go back to Scene 2 again. So that's just a handy way that you can toggle back and forth. I can click and go from the fade out to black and then fade back in to the display capture. That's really all there is to scenes and sources. With the audio mixer, as I mentioned, I'm using an external audio interface, and this is registering as I'm talking. It's basically the gain level on the microphone. If I click on the cog icon down here, I can go in. There are various filters that I can apply to the audio and various parameters that I can modify. But I'll keep it basic. We'll just kind of let that as is. Now you probably noticed when I was over here clicking back and forth from the black to the display capture, it's not an abrupt shift. It's a very nice gradual transition. Well, that's being handled over here in Scene Transitions. And I currently have this set for fade. There are various options. You can do a cut, you can do a swipe, you can do a fade to color. I like fade, and I have the duration of the fade set at 2121 milliseconds. That's just a random number I happened across, but I like it because it's a very gradual, very casual transition from one to the other. And the last dock over here is Controls, where I can click to start and stop recording, and then down here is the Settings option that we accessed earlier. Now, in just a second, I'd like to do a walkthrough of a typical recording sequence. But before we do that, let's jump back over here to Scenes and do one more thing. Now, I think I'd like to add a logo that we can also switch over to. And so I'm going to click on the plus sign. It's defaulting to calling it Scene 3. I'll say that's okay. And now, from your perspective, the screen has probably again gone completely black because there's no source selected for Scene 3. So what I'm doing right now under Sources is clicking on the plus sign. I'm selecting Image because I want to add an image. I'm just going ahead and calling it Image and saying OK. Now it's letting me browse. I'm going to my Pictures and I'm selecting the Valor XL logo, which I'm clicking OK on. And now you should be able to see that. I'll enlarge it a little bit, center it up somewhat, and there you go. Now I'll come back over here to Scene 2, and here we are. So now we have the original scene, which is our black background, Scene 2, which is the display capture, and then Scene 3, the logo that we just added. So I can click, and we can transfer back and forth from one to the other. Now, the last thing I'd like to do is go back over here into Settings and show you one more change that we can make. We'll click on Settings, open the dialog box, and this time we're going to go to Hotkeys. Now, what are hotkeys? Well, this is basically a way that you can assign any functionality within OBS Studio to a key on your keyboard. And this is incredibly convenient because what this means is you can operate the different parameters of the software without having to physically come back into the software. And if you look up here, you'll see that for start recording and stop recording, I have inserted a left and a right bracket. So what that means is when I have OBS Studio open, I can use a left bracket to start recording and a right bracket to stop recording, and I don't have to click on any other controls like down here. I also have a backslash that I use to pause recording and to unpause recording. And if we scroll on down, here are the scenes that we've set up. Now, we have scene number 1 right here, which is the black that we are fading into. We also have Scene 2, and I'm going to add the hotkey for that so that we can toggle directly into Scene 2 just by clicking on that. Scene 3 is our logo, and for that, I'll go ahead and give that a hotkey of 3. We'll click Apply. We'll click OK. And now, without clicking on anything over here, simply by using my keyboard, I can go to black. I can fade back into our display. I can go back over to the logo, and then I can fade out once again. It's extremely convenient, and it's great because the last thing you want to do in a video that you're recording is to come back in here to manually click on scenes. That would look absolutely terrible. So I'll go ahead and walk you through the sequence that I would use to do a recording. Now again, I'm already in the recording mode. You wouldn't be at this point. But basically what you could do is open up OBS Studio and then go ahead and minimize it. In my case, it's taking me back to my Windows desktop. The next thing I can do is press the hotkey that fades to black. Now I can press the hotkey that would start recording. As soon as recording begins, I'll press the hotkey that takes me to the display capture. And here you could do pretty much anything, whatever you want your video to be about. You can be demonstrating a program, a particular piece of software. You can be going through a document. You can even be on a website looking at different pages. Whatever you do here will be captured. And then, of course, you can also go back over to the logo. When you're completely finished, you can use the hotkey to fade back out to black, and then you can use the hotkey to stop recording. It's a very streamlined, very good workflow, and that really shows the value of hotkeys. They're an excellent tool. So after you've finished recording, there's one final step that I'd like to show you. If you go to the upper left-hand corner and click on File, click then on Show Recordings. And this will now take us to the area where we decided to save all of our videos. Now, you'll notice here that this icon looks different from all the rest. This is the video that we're currently recording right now, so it's still in process. But these are all videos that I've recorded earlier today. And as you can see, the naming convention on them is the year, the month, the day, and then underneath are 2-digit numbers, 3 of them that are separated by hyphens. It's a unique identifier for each one of these clips, and it makes it easy to tell them apart when you're using them in a project. Now, if I hover over any of these, you'll notice that it's telling me that they are MKV files. An MKV file is a medium-sized, high-quality file, but they're not very convenient to work with. They're difficult to share, and they're virtually impossible to import into an external video editing software if you'd like to do additional tweaking. So the first thing we want to do is convert these into MP4s. That's extremely easy to do. We'll go back up here to File, and this time we'll click on Remux Recordings. Now, when this opens up, we can click on this ellipsis. It'll take us back again to all these recordings that we were looking at. And let's go with this one down here, 195236. I'll select it. The file name appears down here, and I'll click on Open. Now this is showing us that we're converting an MKV file into an MP4. We'll click on Remux. Instantly, it's done. Recording remuxed. We'll say OK. We'll close. And now we'll go back to File and Show Recordings. And if we scroll down now, you'll see that we have the original 195236 in the MKV file, and we have another 195236 that is in the MP4 format. So we can now upload that, do anything that we want with it. And that's basically a run-through of how to use OBS Studio for screen capture recording. Well, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg, but as you can see, OBS Studio is an incredibly powerful tool. It can really revolutionize how you do trainings in your organization. At Valor Excel, we're all about streamlining the processes that you use so that you truly can succeed. Is your small business or nonprofit on a good trajectory? How can you even tell? If you click on the link in the description below, you can download a free PDF called Taking Your Organization's Temperature. It consists of 30 statements about the health of your organization. You'll rate each one of them in terms of how it applies to you. There's a numeric value for each. All you do is add them up, and that total will place you in one of 3 categories. It will tell you whether or not your organization approaches things in a way that's inactive, reactive, or proactive. I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, please give us a like. And in the comments below, let me know some other situations where you've run into frustrations trying to do trainings in your organization. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. We have a lot of great content coming in the days ahead, specifically tailored to small businesses and nonprofits. Thanks so much for joining me today. Remember, at Valor Excel, we're committed to helping you do smart work. Please join me again next time. Until then, goodbye for now.